Hurricane Erick is rapidly intensifying as it approaches the coast of Mexico, and it's expected to make landfall as an extremely dangerous major hurricane on Thursday. In this video, I'm going to be showing the latest information and going over the potentially devastating impacts that are expected from Erick. But first, if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button for more weather updates. Here's a look at the Eastern Pacific. You can see Hurricane Erick right here, and it's definitely looking more intense as it's rapidly intensifying into a major hurricane. The latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center shows maximum sustained winds are 110 miles per hour with a minimum central pressure at 967 millibars, moving northwest at 9 miles per hour. But I will say that it's probably already a major hurricane. Like, by the time that you're watching this video, it's basically a major hurricane. Because even you could see on satellite imagery over the past few hours, it's definitely organized very quickly, even on infrared satellite imagery, and of course on the visible satellite imagery. Even on the visible satellite imagery, you can see a well-defined eye. This definitely looks, everything about this looks like a major hurricane right now. Also back on the infrared satellite imagery, you could see just very cold cloud tops, very intense convection all the way around the center. This is definitely a very organized system, and that should continue all the way till pretty much it makes landfall. Now, there is the potential that as it gets closer to the coast, the land interaction could mess with the circulation a little bit on the northern side of the storm because of the very mountainous terrain. That's a possibility, but everything else is very favorable for this to continue intensifying. But it is already a major hurricane, and even you can see that the main part of the storm is already starting to actually reach the coast of Mexico to some extent. So this is already bringing in tropical storm force winds, and the hurricane hunters are actually flying into Erick right now, and I'm sure they'll find that it's a major hurricane. Even the current advanced Dvorak technique, basically just looking at satellite imagery and trying to estimate the intensity, shows 104 knots. That's 120 miles an hour, a Category 3 hurricane. The key messages for Hurricane Erick are saying that Erick continues to rapidly intensify and is expected to be a major hurricane when it reaches the coast. Within the hurricane warning area, late tonight or early Thursday, devastating wind damage is possible when the core moves onshore. Weather conditions are already deteriorating, and preparations to protect life and property should be rushed to completion before sunset. So right now, anybody in the path of this has to be ready for this by tonight, because this is actually coming in pretty quickly early on Thursday, and Erick will produce heavy rainfall. It continues to produce heavy rainfall across portions of Central America and Southwest Mexico through this week. Life-threatening flooding and mudslides are likely, especially in areas of steep terrain. And a dangerous, life-threatening storm surge is also expected to produce coastal flooding near and to the east where the center crosses the coast in areas of onshore winds. And this storm surge will be accompanied by large and destructive waves. So this is a very dangerous hurricane. Here's the latest cone showing those maximum winds at 110 miles an hour, but wind gusts are 130 miles an hour in the eye wall of the hurricane. But you can see that tropical storm force winds are already touching the coast here. And then by later tonight, this is at midnight Central Standard Time, we have winds of 125 miles an hour, and it could actually intensify even more than this potentially with wind gusts of 155 miles an hour. Those wind gusts will basically destroy a lot of structures. And notice this, it's still offshore at this point, but of course the eye wall, this is going to be a long period of very strong winds coming in as it slides along the coast a little bit. So this whole area could definitely be seeing some very destructive winds and in storm surge where you have onshore flow. And once it makes landfall early on Thursday morning, potentially, it could be a Cat 4. That's what I'm thinking. It could, if it's already a major hurricane, it could be a Cat 4 once it hits. And this is kind of like an Otis type of scenario with this rapidly intensifying hurricane. then once it hits, it's going to be down to 65 miles an hour by noon Central Time on Thursday. And then after that, it's a tropical depression with winds of 25 miles an hour. So not much in terms of the wind, but the rain is still going to be there. And all the moisture from the system going over all these mountainous areas is going to lead to a lot of flooding, a lot of mudslides. And so significant problems from this. The official rainfall forecast is showing 12 to 16 inches of rain close to where the center of Erick hits, and that's 12 to 6 inches of rain, or 300 to 400 millimeters of rain. So that's a lot of rain, and maybe a small area of over 400 millimeters of rain, or 16 to 20 inches of rain, and even a more widespread area of anywhere from 4 to 12 inches of rain across southern Mexico with this, and even 2 to 4 inches of rain falling in a short period of time over these mountainous areas will lead to a lot of flooding and mudslides. Here's the current track guidance, the latest track guidance for Hurricane Erick. The models have definitely focused in on a landfall somewhere in here, really. That's what they're looking at. But then after that, it goes inland. There were some models before kind of showing it going along the coast, which would be a really bad scenario, as it could maintain tropical storm intensity, or at least be a tropical depression kind of going along the coast, bringing in more rain, and that would be a big problem. But they are showing that the center actually moves inland, so it will dissipate fairly quickly. If it follows this track guidance, it will most likely dissipate very quickly after landfall, but still bringing a lot of those rain impacts. And then the model intensity guidance, now this is from a few hours ago, so it's probably already a category 3. We're probably at 100 knots, maybe even 105 knots, but they were peaking it at a high-end category 3 potentially, even rapid intensification guidance taking it all the way up to a category 4. Now, I think if we're already at 105 knots potentially, we could definitely be looking at a category 4 at landfall. That's definitely possible within the next few hours. And then here's the HAFS A model. Now this is, the intensity on this is actually way too weak. They were initializing this. This was back when it was a weaker system, and that's the thing with rapid intensification events. The models don't necessarily capture that extreme rate of intensification right away. And so we're looking at potentially, when this was initialized, maybe it was at 980 something millibars as a category 1 hurricane, maybe a category 2 hurricane, but now we're already at 967 millibars. This is saying 978 at this point, so that's too low. But then they're intensifying it all the way down to 972 millibars. Now that is also too low, so it could be in the 960s, maybe even 950s as a category 3 or 4 hurricane before it makes landfall. And now they're showing it offshore for a while, and so they're taking it a bit further west. So then that gives it maybe an opportunity to weaken down if the center is being disrupted by the land interaction and the friction. That is possible, but it's still a very organized hurricane, and this would actually mean more problems because you have a longer time where you're seeing these like strong winds and very heavy rain along the coastal areas. So that's gonna cause more problems, because then it hasn't made landfall yet at 7 a.m. Central Time, before finally by 10 a.m. Central Time Thursday, it's finally made landfall as a powerful hurricane, and then it does start to dissipate. But notice all this heavy rain just kind of stays there, and then they take it offshore a bit. So this is older model guidance from showing that more westerly track. So I don't think that's as likely, but it is possible, just depending on what happens to the center over the mountains. But the intensity is way too low on the HAFS A model and pretty much all of the hurricane models for now. Here's a look at the wind forecast on the HAFS A, and it's still showing way too low on the intensity. Now, they do finally, right before it makes landfall at 7 a.m. Thursday, June 19th, along the coast of southern Mexico, they are showing that the winds have reached 108 knots. That's 110 knots, 125 miles an hour. So definitely a high-end Category 3. But based on how low they're estimating the intensity right now, it could be a Category 4. I'm going to say it's probably going to be a Category 4 at landfall. Now, if something really crazy happens and it does a real Otis type of rapid intensification, then it might be even a little more intense than that. I don't think so, but you never know, because it's definitely intensified a lot more than even the forecast models were anticipating. At this point, the models were actually anticipating only maybe a high-end Category 1, maybe a Category 2, but now we're already at a Category 3, I think, right now. The conditions are favorable for this to continue strengthening. We have sea surface temperatures of 30 degrees Celsius. That's 86 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe even 31 degrees Celsius in a small area, but yeah, overall 30 degrees Celsius as it approaches the coast. And so that's very favorable for continued intensification all the way up till landfall. The only thing that could disrupt some intensification is, as you notice, the very, very mountainous terrain, even close to the coast. This could disrupt the center, but if the eye wall is able to remain very organized, it could maintain or even continue to strengthen as it moves in towards landfall tonight and early tomorrow morning. Now here's also the wind shear, and the upper level pattern is also favorable. You have definitely a strong outflow pattern working with the system, and very light winds. Really, the winds are light aloft, and pretty much no wind shear. At least that's what it looks like. But actually, as we do a sounding, let's go to like what's supposed to be right about right now. We have this evening, we have light wind shear. As you notice, only 7 knots of wind shear. The max shear is 8 knots. It's favorable for the hurricane, and also the moisture all the way through is very high. So definitely favorable for intensification to continue. But then once we go to tonight, as it's coming up to the coast, notice the shear is coming out of the north, and the moisture is still favorable, but the shear could be a problem. Now, it's not super unfavorable, but it might actually start to disrupt the storm, supposedly. Now, at least according to the model, but that may not actually affect it, but that would be because of the mountains starting to destroy the wind field. And then as we go even closer in towards landfall, it's very mountainous. Still have shear out of the north off the mountains, really. That could start to disrupt the storm, but I don't know, like that's what the model is thinking. It may or may not actually destroy the system that much, because it's still a very intense storm. Now if we go to so as it kind of makes landfall, there's the potential that the shear increases. We'll see, but overall conditions are favorable in the next few hours, at least, for this to continue rapidly intensifying. I think it's a major hurricane right now, and it'll continue to be a extremely dangerous major hurricane when it makes landfall in southern Mexico early tomorrow morning, and it could hit as a Category 4. That's what I'm thinking. Here's a look at the wind gusts, and this model is probably too low. I really think it is too low on the intensity, but notice what happens as we go towards tonight, towards Puerto Escondido. We have these wind gusts of 60 miles an hour at basically 10 p.m. Central Time. Then wind gusts could be 105 miles an hour, according to this model, right there on the coast. They're thinking the wind gusts offshore are 120. I think that's going to probably be happening onshore along the coast as the storm moves in. Then those wind gusts do kind of drop off with 75 mile an hour wind gusts, but near the center, still 115 mile an hour wind gusts rushing into mountainous areas too. These are mountainous areas getting 115 mile an hour wind gusts from Erick. And then after this storm hits, like they're showing around 7 a.m., it's already made landfall, and the wind gusts will be a lot less, maybe even only 50 to 60 miles an hour. But then they continue to diminish throughout the day on Thursday. But tonight, really dangerous wind gusts. These are destructive, really destructive wind gusts. this would be like the National Weather Service issues extreme wind warnings for winds over 115 miles an hour like this. So these are very destructive wind gusts that will cause tremendous damage along with the storm surge and the flooding rain. And here's a look at the total rain on the GFS model. They're showing near Puerto Escondido over like 11 inches of rain. I think there could be even more than this. And then Salina Cruz seeing 7 inches. And then Ometepec is seeing 5 inches. So these are some decent amounts of rain. And then even 4 to 6 inches even further inland. So definitely a lot of rain just being funneled through this storm system over mountainous areas, which is going to be a big problem. Even further north, we still have 10 inches of rain from all the tropical moisture from Erick and kind of just general tropical thunderstorm activity around it. And so there's definitely the rain is going to be a big thing. And notice this goes all the way up, at least afterwards, after the storm system, not as a tropical storm or anything, but the remnants of it could still bring like 2 to 4 inches of rain all the way up into northwestern Mexico, and then potentially even into the southwestern US, even in Texas and New Mexico, potentially seeing half an inch to an inch of rain. And also Central America, seeing the Yucatan seeing over 1 to 2 inches of rain. Guatemala seeing 2 to 3 inches of rain, maybe even a little more than that, but just see all this tropical moisture just going across. So that's going to be a big issue for flooding, not just around Erick, but even just flooding continuing to happen across Central America. And also the waves. The waves and the storm surge is going to be a big threat with Erick. And notice waves of 15 to 20 feet coming in, and this is coming in tonight. But once it makes landfall, those winds and the waves will start to diminish. But depending on the GFS model and the Euro model are thinking maybe landfall is going to happen a little bit faster, but some of the hurricane models are making it happen a few hours later. So we'll just have to see. But tonight or really early tomorrow morning, somewhere between maybe 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. Central Time is probably the most likely time frame for that. Here's at 2 a.m. as it's kind of making landfall, we have waves up to 25 feet, even 20 feet along the coast, close to the center of Erick. And then those destructive waves do start to diminish after about 7 a.m. or so, before you still have some significant waves approaching 10 feet along the coast from what's left of Erick. Then throughout the day on Thursday, those will start to diminish. So that's the latest information on Hurricane Erick, as it's an extremely dangerous major hurricane headed towards Mexico. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked this video, please be sure to hit the like button if you haven't already, share the video, and make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for more weather updates on the tropics. Thanks for watching. Extreme Weather Zone, out.